Welcome to the Blue Abroad Show, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be sitting here in the studio thanks to Assertive Media after a win, Shad. Very excited to be here. You know it. We're not going to get we're going to get right to it tonight. We've got a lot to unpack. We're only 24 hours removed from a great win yesterday against the Fremantle Dockers. I've got Mr. Paul Sebastiani in the studio with me. Shad's going to run the intro, and we're going to get this show rolling. Let's do it.
What's going on? Incident!
Martin's been very impressive every single time.
I saw the Carlton supporters, thank you for the love.
Great sense of playing Glasgow. And there's a vantage moment. Ball inside 50, control! He strikes it beautifully. He's got it.
We are here. Happy Easter to those of you celebrating. Mr. Paul Sebastiani, mate, what's going on?
Yeah, it's nice to be here after a win, Terry. It's nice to be at a football game when it's all sewn up at halftime. Is how it ended up on Easter Sunday. Nice way a nice tonic to end the weekend with.
Party time for Carlton. I don't know when the last time it happened. There was just we're going to get into it, but yeah, it was a good day out. It's been a good day after. I think Rafi Vartanian has said here. He said it's a round of footy. He's gone. It's a Monday night. He's not feeling disappointed. And it feels weird. Yeah. How has your day after been?
Good. finally, I woke up to not too many text messages saying the whole club's stuffed. We're gone. 0-2 again for the ninth year in a row. Teague's head's on the chopping block. Blah blah blah. But we did what we had to do, and we went out there, dominated from the onset. And look, I think I didn't expect us to win that comfortably, but it was nice to see the boys rock up and do what they had to do on Sunday yesterday. So very happy.
Absolutely. Well, good to hear. We're going to unpack the game shortly. We're going to get through a few other bits and pieces. We're going to talk about the reserves and what's happening there. Obviously, you had a comprehensive report on the channel as a debut. The
VFL, was, yeah, pretty much. It was, yeah.
So we're going to get through that. We're going to talk about, obviously, round 3. We're going to talk about round 4, the Gold Coast Suns and Metricon on Saturday night. And then we're going to, I think this is the time to just enjoy and then get practical pretty quickly, because very much like last week, we had to move on from Collingwood, even though it was a 10-day break.
Of course.
Pack it up, unpack it, and then and move on.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you, I know you did the play ratings this morning.
Yes.
And I commented on the video. I don't know if you saw it, but what rating did you give the Kool-Aid this morning that you soaked up?
Well, I've got nothing left. I had slabs left. Slabs, Paul. I had slabs of Kool-Aid left, and they're all gone. The voice is
love it.
The voice is gone. It was a good night. It was a good night last night. I'll give you that much.
Can you give us a number? 10 out of 10?
The Kool-Aid. You can't give it a 10. You want to give yourself room to improve.
Okay, all right. Good.
So I'll give it a 9.2.
Right, okay.
9.2.
Right.
As Dave Portnoy would say, you got to give yourself. You got to give yourself
one
room.
sip. Everyone knows the rules.
Exactly. Very good. Very good. Also, before we continue, I want to obviously thank Shad from Assertive Media. I want to thank the paid members of the Blue Abroad YouTube channel. Your support allows things like this to happen. As you can see, we have our AFL Guernsey Club sponsors scarf here. You can see number 29 there on the left or the right of screen, I should say. That's for Corey Durden, who we finally got to see a piece of.
We did indeed
during the reserves.
Yes.
So we'll talk a little bit about him. However, we should begin. Let's start talking about the reserves.
Yep.
So I know that you've done your review, Paul.
Yes.
But overall, what do you think the fans need to know about the reserves?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll quick over the results. Carlton, what was it? 15-12, 102 to Williamstown, 11-77. So pretty comprehensive victory in the end by the boys, even though it was a slow start. I think we conceded the first 4 goals, and you and I were sitting there thinking,
why are we here?
What is going on? So, and I think from what I was told, though, they were playing, with all due respect, they were playing a second rung. Host of VFL listed boys in the team. So I think there is one more practice game to go from what I've been told, and that will be closer to a full strength VFL lineup. So yeah, probably keep an eye out to see where we're truly at from a VFL perspective next week.
Yep.
But again, comprehensive win against a Williamstown team who boasted Harrison McCready and Cam Polson, funnily enough. So, and look, Williamstown are bona fide VFL club. You know, they've been in finals for many a year, in grand finals as well. So it was good to get the win over them. Of the Carlton listed boys that stood out, Tom Williamson was named best of ground. The thing to take away he was named best of ground by the coaches. Yeah. I think he was named best of ground purely because he went back to, and I think we noticed this too, just kept it simple.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to take on blokes by stepping inside and trying to, you know, what he was doing throughout the preseason and round 1 and round 2 is trying to fend off blokes stepping inside, and just didn't work out for him.
Yep.
So it was more along the lines of, and I kept making mention of this, his running patterns. Like, mate, stop running to your right side. Run onto your favourable side. So I noticed a bit of that on the weekend, and he wasn't, I know it's a cliche, but he wasn't biting off too much. He wasn't biting off too much with ball in hand. He wasn't trying too much, just kept it simple. And it was, I don't think it was an absolute standout, but I think the coaches were clearly pleased with what he brought up, given he was omitted from the side on form. So
back to the basics.
Yeah,
that's what it's for.
Correct.
And he was replaced by a very, very impressive young lad who we will talk about later.
Yes, indeed. And the other two, obviously, look, I mean, Mitch McGovern will all but likely, I think, come into the side. His form on the weekend was quite good in the VFL. I mean, and I made mention of it too. He's class above VFL level, you know.
He's paid more than what that whole
exactly right. Well, that's exactly right, mate. He's paid more than the whole Williamstown team combined. So he kicked 3 goals, was quite impressive. You know, took his goals well. Probably could have had 4 or 5, to be honest. And then they shifted him down back for a little while. So I don't know if that's going to be the flavour of the year for him. But like what I saw up forward, and look, I think he'd be a competent backman as well, because he does read the ball fairly well, as his brother does too, Jeremy at West Coast. So, you know, I mean, he's a natural footballer, ball in hand. He's very talented. So
I thought he looked fit.
Yeah.
Just mobile.
Yeah, definitely.
Fit,
He was moving. He was moving without ailments from what I saw. So, and then Liam Stocker.
Yeah. Everyone wants to know about Liam Stocker.
Liam.
He's got a like this aura, this presence about him.
He struts.
He's
got the John O'Brien sort of,
yes.
You know,
he's got the jawline,
Yeah.
the headband.
Yeah.
He's got the he's like a gazelle, you know.
When's the last time we've had a player like that at the club?
Honestly.
Never, mate.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Can't remember. Maybe Fev used to walk around and, you know, say, I'm here. But yeah, Liam's game Stocker's game was good on the weekend. I thought, you know, I liked his game because, and I know there's so much talk about our development at the moment and how we're developing our young talent. I think they've held him back well. I don't think they've exposed him too early. And when he did play in Bolts, when Bolts was our coach, he didn't look out of depth at all. Like he looked like he belonged at that level. And I think with him, ball in hand, his kicking it's just such a simple technique, but it just works.
Somebody said in the comments, I can't remember who it was in your review, how the ball sounds off his boot compared to everyone else. I also didn't realize he can kick off both sides.
Yeah. He's got an awesome left foot kick as well.
Yeah. But the question is, and then I left that game saying to myself, before the game I said, get him in, got to get him in. I left that game saying, no, let's just wait a little bit. He's missed a whole year of footy.
Yeah.
We know what happened last year.
No rush.
Yeah, he's going well.
No rush at all. There's no point putting him into the side. But if he was to be picked, I think he does look primed and sort of ready to rock and roll into the year. You know, and what I liked about his game too was that he floated around in the midfield a lot more than what he had been in previous years. So that is a clear indication that he's got his body right. He's got his aerobic capacity at a level where the coaches and the football club think he can play predominantly in the midfield. And that's what we drafted him as, that high, you know, that high energy, competitive beast of a midfielder. And, you know, if you're going to get a guy like him into the side playing good football, he's going to use the ball so well and deliver it well to our forwards. And what I liked about him, he went forward and kicked goals. And he took his goals beautifully as well. That's what we need to add into the midfield. I've been screaming out for that for a long, long time. So, look, those were the 3 standouts. David Cunningham, and we even made mention of this as well.
Half time, you and I
start.
sitting there saying, has he come to play today? What's the duet? You know, you just want to see a guy like that who I went to that game saying he should be playing maybe instead of Murphy, or, you know, he should be pushing Murphy, someone like a Murphy out of the side. But
you got to show form though.
Yeah. And at halftime, it was looking a little
grim.
Yeah.
It's looking grim.
Yeah.
But then, and you, the first thing you may mention of when he was in one of these centre bounces, he was just moseying his way around, wasn't really bringing the heat, the tackle pressure. And then, I don't know, something must have clicked at half time. And then he just, boom, he sort of exploded after half time and he was named in the best again. And this is the problem with him at the moment. He's a flash in the pan player. And I just don't think he has the mindset at the moment to be able to put it together for 4 quarters.
Yep.
Has the talent, clearly has the talent, and he has the pace and he has the burst. He's got the ability to spread and run and carry, which is what we are screaming out for in the midfield. But again, coaches and Teague are calling out for a 4-quarter effort.
Yes.
If you're not bringing it for 4 quarters, you will not get a game. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So, look, we've got an ample replacement in there if someone goes down or if Murph or someone in that position is out of form and he's showing what he did in the second half for a longer period of the game at the VFL level. And that's what he's got to do now. He's got to become more consistent. He's got to lay tackle pressure. He's got to get his defensive pressure up. And I think given how we played against Collingwood and that defensive pressure not being there from our midfield, I think that's why he probably wasn't really looked at for the game against Fremantle this week. We wanted to bring the heat this weekend from that point of view, and he wasn't given a look at.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Spot on. Any other takeaways from the reserves game before we move on?
Interesting to note, Sam Ramsey was also named.
He also started a little slow.
Yeah, I think
he came on.
Look, you'd have to look back at the vision, but he in that role, I think he's clearly sort of playing a lockdown role. But later in the game, he had a few moments where, with ball in hand, he was just cool, calm, collected, poised. Look, I mean, we did pick him up with pick 47 in the 2019 draft, so it's a speculative pick in that round, that third round. But those are the picks that you've got to turn into footballers. You've got to turn them into senior footballers, and that's what we haven't had enough of in the last couple of years. In the last maybe 10 to 15 years, those later draft picks we haven't been able to develop into good footballers. So, look, keep an eye out for him as well. And Josh Honey is coming back from a groin injury, from what I was told too. So he kicked 2 goals on the weekend, and he did debut last year. And there was a big push around for him to really get into that senior side last year, and he showed a bit in his first year of football. But I'd be keeping an eye out for him as well. So Corey Durden too.
Yep.
Like what he brought to the table.
He's not afraid of contact.
No, look, from an outpoint point of view, he didn't have much of the ball. He didn't hit the scoreboard. But what I like from him, and you made mention of it too, is that he goes out there to hunt his opponent and hurt. Yeah. And he's got he's good size about him for a small forward. So, look, he's got all the time in the world to develop this year. Personally, I don't think he'll get a game in the first half of the year, but definitely, I think in the second half of the year, I think he'd be pushing his case.
Yeah, it's just another reminder of how grateful we are to have the game back, because not only do we have the ones, we've got the twos, we've got a reserve side, we've got quite a few AFL listed players there, and I think the reports you're going to be doing are going to allow us as fans to really have another layer of understanding. I mean, the club can only do so much; they can only tell us so much. Yeah. There's a lot of work to be done on the inside of the club. So, mate, we appreciate your work.
Thank you very much. And Matt Kennedy as well.
Yes.
What I liked about him is that, and they spoke about this last year, is a real leader down there. I mean, as a senior footballer, you can sort of get dropped down to the reserves and I don't want to be here, blah, blah, but just pins his ears back, grits the teeth, does what he has to do. Good contested player on the inside. And again, another ample replacement. If someone like an Ed Curnow was to go down or lose form, he can come into the side and do a job. I mean, the only thing, and I think coaches would be asking him to do as well, the only thing I think he would want to add to his game is run and carry. Whether or not he's got that in his repertoire or an ability to be able to build on that, I'm not sure. He's been in the system long enough to probably do that. But if he can add that facet to his game, then that'll go a long way into him getting another contract at the end of the year. But again, as I said, ample replacement if we need him. Yeah,
I thought he and Stocker were the two who I left that game saying, okay, they've played 4 quarters. I mean, Mitch was pretty good for a lot of the game, more so in that third, but he only did play 3 quarters. Yeah. So, yeah. Good start. Yeah, good start.
And you need your VFL team. You need your players to be knocking on the door and in good form. It's as simple as that. Yep. We haven't had a VFL team that's made the finals for quite a while. So whether or not that's just as a result of us rebuilding and going with all these young kids against these VFL bodies who are, have been in the system for X amount of years. But Daniel O'Keefe seems to be doing a good job down there at the moment. So look, we haven't played a proper VFL premiership game yet, but so far so good.
Love it. Love it. Let's move on because we have a win to bask in. Would you believe it? Would you believe it? We're going to talk about yesterday. I've done enough talking about it, so I'm gonna pass the torch. What was your overall reaction to yesterday? And you at home, what was your overall reaction to yesterday?
I'll just sum it up. It was just lovely to sit in my seat all day, not be on edge, and just sit down there and bask in the glory of a comfortable victory.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just nice to know that after, when we had that nice patch in the third quarter, we kind of put the game to bed in the second quarter. We went sort of 5-6 goals up. And then we really put the nail in the coffin in that third quarter when Harry sort of went bonkers from that. He said, he owned that pocket, mate. He couldn't get away from that pocket, could he?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it was just nice to be able to go to the footy and say, Carlton are in control of this match. We couldn't lose from the position we were in that third quarter and the way we were dominating the game. And I mean, it's to be expected from us now when we're at this stage of the rebuild.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to use that word too often, but I think we're a much more advanced side than what Fremantle should be, and it showed yesterday.
Yeah,
a lot of our experienced boys stood up. A lot of our youngsters stood up as well, and it was just, as I said, it's just nice to be at a game where I'm not going crazy,
Cursing,
I'm not popping a blood vessel, and the only thing that the Eddie Betts goal. I mean, look, again, from an output point of view, he may have not had all the touches in the world, but that goal, just the whole place just lifted. And that is what, look, I mean, and I've been a critic of him being drafted as well, but it's those moments there where everyone just stands up a little bit taller. The crowd gets behind him, the crowd gets behind the team, and they all lifted for him as well. And it was just, it was nice to see, and the chance of Eddie ringing around.
I'll tell you what, he had the first shot on goal. Had he kicked that, tell you what, it would have been I don't know. I mean, we still would have won the game.
I may have had a cheeky little flutter on him for first goal as well.
No.
So I'm writhing in the pain of that at the moment. But no, look, it's just nice to have him back, and nice for Carlton to do it for him in his 200th Carlton game.
Yeah, I think the point about it hasn't gone lost is, I mean, yesterday was the first time the Victorians got to go back to the footy and see a win.
Eddie. And to see Eddie.
Yeah. And, to sit with, I was with my brother and my sister, and we were with cousin and friends and the family. It was, that's I know that we're here to talk about winning premierships and 4 points every week, but there was a little bit extra yesterday. It was just that special day at the footy, that happy place, that those 3 hours that nothing else in your life matters, and you get to go watch your team win.
Yeah, it was nice, perfect.
I got really emotional yesterday.
I was there on a full stomach as well, mate. Lunch with the Italian family, the nonni and the Zias and the Zeals and the, so even if we lost, I would have been happy regardless. But with a full. But look, again, and what I think was the big thing that I took out of the game, and I mentioned this on the fan cam yesterday, was the response to David Teague's messaging.
Yes, guys,
bring the heat. This is what we need to do. Whatever was said in that review on Monday, whatever the hell happened with the brutal player review, it's clearly reverberated on the players. They've responded to him, and that's the sign of a team playing for their coach, I think. And look, we can say that Fremantle were injury depleted. And look, I've made a list of the players who were out. I mean, 5, Stephen Hill, Joel Hamling, Rory Lobb, Alex Pearce, Griffin Logue, key players for them, clearly. I mean, but then you look at ours. You look at our injury list, Charlie Curnow, Nick Newman, Jack Martin, Zach Fisher, DeConning, McGovern. It probably all sort of cancels each other out, to be honest. Yeah. So what I really liked about the game was that heat and pressure, that needs to be brought to every single game. Doesn't matter who you're playing, whether you're playing Gold Coast or Fremantle or Richmond. It doesn't matter what end of the table you're at. That's the pressure you got to bring every week. And keeping in mind, look, they are human. They're not going to be able to bring 100% heat every single week, but it's what you do to mitigate the opposition when it's not going your way. In the first 2 weeks, when it wasn't going our way, we weren't able to, stop Collingwood from really hurting us when they went forward. And the same went for Richmond when they got the game on their terms in the last sort of couple of minutes. We weren't able to stop them from scoring. Mm-hmm. And then we had the game on our terms on yesterday because we brought the heat from the start, and we created a buffer, and you're going from there. Look, the only disappointing thing I'd say was the last quarter and maybe the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes of the third quarter. I think whether or not we took the foot off the gas, and I know Freo sort of shifted one down back to sort of maybe mitigate the damage from their point of view. And we did try to play like millionaires.
We did.
For a little while, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Look, if you had told me we would have won by, 45 points going into the game, I would have said,
Yeah. It's funny
Take-
how before the game, nobody would be guessing we win by 45. I think a lot of people were scarred. I can reel off a few
Yeah.
text messages I got beforehand saying it's, Cripps is injured and Sarong and Brayshaw and Chera are going to walk around him. It's going to be 2-on-3 once the ball hits the deck and he's slow. And nobody, I don't think, would have predicted us by 45. And had you said that, you'd take it. It's funny because we've gone from the Collingwood disaster, doomsday.
Well, it was a
where are we
disaster.
at?
It was terrible.
And then we've gone from that to, but we should have won by more against Freo. It wasn't 70, 80 points. We're a fascinating bunch.
Yeah. Well, what did I say? Beggars can't be choosers.
Correct.
And that was a point at where we just had to win.
Yeah.
No matter what the cost was, doesn't matter how many points we did it by, we just had to get that win on the board.
Yeah.
Now the season's rolling.
Yeah.
Now we can get into it. We're late to the party, but we're here.
Yeah.
We're
classic, fashionably late.
Yeah, correct.
9 years in a row we've been 0-2.
It's okay, mate. It's a long season.
That's
There's plenty to dissect, and there's plenty of water to go on the bridge under the bridge, as they say.
I want to ask some questions, just some themes around the game. So, what did you make of? I think you sort of touched on it with Teague and the response, but the leadership, because that was the big question last week. Our leaders, who arguably let us down, according to some of the supporters. How did you feel they, as a collective, went yesterday?
Oh well, it's the two co-captains were phenomenal
Mm.
yesterday. Cripps, clear standout in the middle. Two goals and 34 disposals, and on Twitter, it's a fascinating page. Sir Swamp.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. He created a list of players that had in 2021 who have had 30 or more disposals, 10 or more clearances, and 2 or more goals. And there's only one player on that list, Patrick Cripps.
Wow.
So do yourself a favor and go on Twitter and go on Sir Swamp. Some fascinating insight into AFL stats, but he's the only player in 2021 to have achieved that feat. And I was speaking to Rocco last night about him, and geez, we're harsh on him. We are so harsh on him.
We are harsh on him.
We know what to we know what the standard is for him, right? But look, was he that bad last week? Yeah, look, he's had, what do you have, like 21 touches, way below his best. But he wasn't our worst last week.
The media beat up before.
Yeah, of course.
Unbelievable.
Look, mate, he'd booked the flight to WA.
The game's
according
gone
to
past
people, mate.
him. Yeah, he hasn't signed his contract. It was not just from Carlton supporters, but from the general media. It was their chance. They wanted their chance to have a go at him, and for whatever reason,
he did look sore on Thursday night against Collingwood.
Yeah,
he looked like he was labouring.
Yeah.
And then even I said too on Twitter, okay, mate, if he's sore, if he's hurt, just rest him.
Yeah,
but I know Andrew Russell's copped a lot of heat, and rightfully so, I think, but got him right.
Yeah.
They got him right for this game, and he dominated. And Sam Doherty was, look, there was one moment in the game for Sam Doherty that it wasn't the one that you made mention on the review when he went back with the fly, and he didn't get the ball. He got cleaned up.
Yeah. There
was a passage of play, I believe it was towards Fremantle's cheer squad end, where I think it may have been a one-on-one, in the Dockers forward line, and he came across and flew across the front of the pack and took the mark with one cluck and landed, and the crowd went up, and I thought, you might be back.
Yeah.
You might be back to your best.
Yeah.
And that was the moment that I thought to myself, geez, that is Sam Doherty of before he did
2017.
his knees. And
he was an intercept marking genius. He was a genius in reading the ball.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And
That's
I get it. Two knees flying for the ball like he used to. I get it.
Yeah.
Like it maybe it's stuck in his head that he can't do it anymore. Whatever the case may be, he might not be as confident. But I felt the same. Same. That was the Doc that we have come to know and love.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and he did have that one out of bounds on the fall towards the interchange. Look, you take the good with the bad. He clearly needs to work on that. But again, it just, what I liked about his game was that, and Liam Jones as well, is that they were the free men and they utilised that free space to full effect.
Mm-hmm.
And going on to Liam Jones as well, he's been touted as a leader of the football club. Look, he didn't really have, I don't think he really had a direct matchup yesterday because Fremantle's tall was really only Tabernar.
Yeah.
I know they had Sean Darcy down there as well, but he's not really a pure forward. He's more of a ruckman. But they used him to Liam Jones and the coaches used Jones to full effect.
Yeah.
Go up, take your intercept marks, take the game on when you have to. You're going to be in free space. We're going to utilize you as much as you can. And what I liked is that he used the ball well yesterday. It's always been a knock on him that he tries to take those kicks, those risky kicks in the back line.
Creates those uh-oh moments.
Yeah, but see, yesterday, look, whether or not it was because the opposition were inferior and he was able to hit those kicks, that may be part of it as well. But again, you're playing against an AFL side and you've got to make the most of it. And he did. And that laser pass to Harry, I want to see more of that.
Well, that was the thing. So he's had 605 meters gained.
Huge.
Unbelievable.
Enormous.
That's Sam Doherty type at his best numbers. And that's what I noticed about him as well. He looked, or they as a defensive unit looked for a direct kick inside 50 from, that center square. And I also noticed Sam Petrevski-Seton up the ground more, Sam Doherty up the ground more. There was a bit, can't put my finger on exactly what it was. If you were at the game, I'm not sure if you noticed it as well, but I did notice these types, these Dohertys and Petrevski-Setons up the ground a lot more, getting their first possession, sort of halfway through the ground as opposed to in that halfback flank.
Yeah, and I think that too is also a byproduct of our midfield and our half forwards being able to lock the ball in your forward half and being able to get those blokes to roll forward. The more you lock the ball in your forward half, the more those good halfback flankers can roll up and use the ball when they find time and space. And, Samo's game yesterday was that's what we need to see more of. 20 to 25 disposals, using the ball well. He went at 95% yesterday, and his endeavour around the contest as well, and the ability to shrug tackles. And look, it was probably his best game across halfback in that role.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And that is a step forward in his development into that role, because, you and I and a lot of Carlton supporters and members have been crying out for him to play in the middle. And, we've drafted him as a midfielder while we're playing him down halfback. And I've been adamant that he needs to base his game on Jake Lloyd from Sydney. Finds the easy football. He knows how to work the angles. He knows how to find his own bit of patch of grass that he can, use the ball in time and space. And that's what Samo needs to start doing, because we know ball in hand is all class. Yeah. Left side, right side. Doesn't matter what side he's on. He's going to use the ball beautifully, and that's what he needs to do more of.
Yeah. A few other names I want to pop up. There's so many names. I mean, Fogarty, obviously, we're going to talk about him. I feel like
big man.
Well, the big fella. Actually, let's start with Harry. Let's do that. Actually, let's start this discussion right now. So I think there's a lot of football purists in the fan base. They don't like this around the corner stuff. They don't like this modern footballer. I initially was a little bit against it, and I feel like you need to have some sort of a base level. You need to have a set shot routine, because what happens if you have a shot after the siren and
of course,
finals pressure and all of that?
Yep.
Then I start thinking, well, mate, the game's changing. Maybe this is just part of that evolution of the game, and maybe the around the body kick is going to be how they do it in Ireland, the Gaelic football. That's how they set up their spot kick. Do you think we're moving into that, or do you still think you've got to have a set shot routine?
We clearly are moving into that, but you still need to have a set shot routine, I think, because it keeps you poised. But again, mate, it doesn't matter what you do as long as the ball's going through the big sticks.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. I don't care if you do a somersault before you have a set shot.
Yeah.
If it's going through the big sticks, mate, do what you want.
Yeah.
Doesn't faze me. But I do think you still need that traditional go back, drop the shoulders, poise yourself, line it up, go back and traditional set shot. But again, if whatever works.
Yeah.
Simple as
that. 7 and 7-5, and then I think another one out in the full.
Yeah. So in his
51st game. Then you start thinking, gosh, he even dropped a few marks early. Potential is a dangerous word.
Well, what is Harry's 30 in the column?
Yeah. Yeah. He's something there. The other one I wanted to talk about is Jack Silvani.
Oh.
He brings a Carlton spirit that we were lacking in round 2. We were talking about what it meant to play against Collingwood, and he fights for front position. He's a battler, 3rd, 4th, 5th efforts. And with him, and I know a lot of people are talking about Eddie Betts, 4 touches, 1 goal, but I just think when Eddie Betts and Jack Silvani are in that forward line together, that forward pressure looks completely different.
It just makes our football team a better side.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that tweet's gone up that we made mention of.
No, it hasn't.
But if you go on my Twitter, I said that he makes our football club a better team on the field, period.
Yeah. He's like the conduit between the present and the past.
Yeah.
There's just so many moments that his family have brought the club. Speaking of, Stephen, not impressed. I like it because Stephen knows it's
Of
real.
course he knows,
He
mate.
knows what really matters.
Of course,
So
mate.
I'd imagine he's hard on Jack, but in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, it's blokes are bloody what, a two-time premiership, however many premierships he's run with the club.
Yeah,
Fullback team of the season. He knows what it's about, mate.
Yeah,
It's not about look. It's about the small parts to create the big.
Yeah.
The big final goal of a premiership.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's probably there thinking, oh yeah, it's a win against Fremantle. We're $1.40. We should be winning.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I've recruited these blokes. I know the talent that they have, and away we go.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna do the votes. I think we'll start with the votes, and then I've got a few more questions around the game and positions and interesting things that happened. So, as always, Paul, I'll get you to start. Your 1, your 2, and your 3, and a notable.
Yep.
And then you guys at home, if you can put your 3, 2, and 1, and then a notable for the game who didn't quite make the votes. And it's hard. Last week it was very.
Will I start with the 1? If that's okay.
However
All
you'd
right.
like to do
All
it.
right. So
You go for it.
1 was Harry Mackay.
Yep.
Clearly, we just when a 6'7", when a 204 centimeter bloke is doing what he did, everyone stands taller, mate. When they're on fire like the way he was yesterday, everyone just looks at it and think, Jesus, mate, look at him go.
Mm-hmm.
Just get the bloody ball to him, get it down there, get it into his space. He's going to create the opportunity, and he was fantastic. Look, it would have probably been a 3 had he converted his set shots.
Yep.
That was the only knock on the performance for me. He probably should have had 10, really. I mean, the shots that he missed were there were some regulation routine set shots that he did miss. But all in all, great game from him. I gave 2 to Patrick Cripps.
Mm-hmm.
Great response from him. Led from the front. Love that he was up for the fight too.
Yeah.
Got stuck into that little mongrel Brayshaw too.
As he should. He's
Little
6'4". He's
got stuck
big
in a chair
stiff.
as well.
Yeah.
Said, piss off, you little grubs.
Yeah.
That's what he said to
The
him.
game requires you to be physical like that.
Correct.
Dustin Martin does it very well for Richmond. You don't have to be a bully, or as I called it, a dog, like Jordan Lewis was.
Yes.
Because he was a dog.
Yeah.
That King hit people from behind.
Correct.
Love him as a commentator, but hated him as a player. It's funny, the fictional character is a totally different perception to the human being. But yeah, I thought Cripps did what he needed to do.
It wasn't an angry game where his head wasn't in the game.
Yeah, correct.
It was an angry game. It's like, no, I'm imposing my will on this game.
Yeah.
These are my home fans. These are my members. This is my stadium.
Yeah.
This is my team.
Yeah.
You ain't coming here and dominating us, And Kevin Sheedy said this as well. Don't let a team dominate you.
Yeah.
And he didn't allow that. And there was talk all week that the Freo midfield were going to, bury us and tear us to shreds. And that's why the number 3 vote this week goes to Sam Walsh, because he was bloody fantastic. What do you say about him?
Brownlow Walsh.
What do you say about this kid?
Yeah.
He is just, and I said yesterday too, he's not the most talented player in that draft, right? I'm talking like, match winning ability, but he will be the best footballer of that draft.
Yeah.
Him and look, that Bailey Smith is been fantastic
Very
for the
good player.
Bulldog. But the professionalism, the work rate, the ability to get to contest after contest, highest disposals he's ever got in an AFL game, 37 touches. And hey, thank Christ we have him.
Yeah. I spoke to Pom before the show, and we were talking about the stats and the big difference in Walsh's game this year to last year. He's handballing. Last year he was kicking more than he was handballing.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's handballing a bit more than he's kicking, and he's looking to start a chain of disposals now and run forward. Dare we say it, Judd-like.
Yeah,
get it out of the pack and
give
run
it, get it.
Yeah. But not around the back. He's looking to really go directly.
What a game. And he's really cleaned up that kicking as well.
Yes.
And that, I think, too, is a byproduct of being able to get yourself into more space. And I love the fact that they've thrown him into the middle. Last year he played on the wing for most of the year, and then they threw him into the guts. They've thrown him into the guts this year, and they've said, mate, you go to work.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you have to do. You go out there and you dominate.
Mm-hmm.
You run as far as you have to run. He's getting up 15 Ks a week on that tracker, on that GPS tracker. And that's what's going to set him apart from the rest of the competition.
Yeah.
Work rate, leadership, commitment to the cause. And he's brought it every single game this year. He's one of maybe 3 or 4 blokes that have walked off the ground this year and said, you know what? Yep, I've given my all. I've given it 100% today and more. And that is what you need from a player in his position. And that's what we expect from a player that we've picked at number 1 in the draft. And he's already our best player.
Our best player. It's time to start
Period.
recognizing. Yeah.
Period.
It's so good. It's great. It's not a knock on anyone else. Like, it's not a knock on Cripps. It's just, I just think he can do a bit more than what Cripps can.
And he's gonna have an insane career.
Yeah.
Provided that all goes well with injuries,
health and whatnot. But absolutely.
His running ability is just off the charts, mate.
Yeah.
Off the charts. He just worked them into the ground yesterday. It's great to see.
Absolutely. Who was your notable? Someone that didn't get into the votes, but you want to give him a little bit of love.
Jeez, Lockie Fogarty. What a man. Where the bloody hell did he come from?
Yeah.
I mean, he's Geelong, that football factory down there is just amazing. I mean, they've hung on by the skin of their teeth today. But, I mean, we picked him up. He was in the same draft as Darren O'Brien, was he not?
Pick 22.
Yeah. So, picked up later. And injuries have dogged his career so far. And it's a case of third time lucky from those sort of recruits down at Geelong. We had Smets and Lang. They didn't work out. And now we've got
Has he done more than Smets and Lang have
the whole career in their whole current careers?
Jeez.
He'd be second in our best and fairest at the moment, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But just and I keep saying this as well, the coaches would love the fact that he is the bloke who's third or fourth in that chain that's creating his own space, winning his own football, and using the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need from those guys who are getting into that space and delivering the ball forward of centre.
Yep.
And his tackle pressure. Mate, bring the heat.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. That is what we need week in, week out from a guy in that role. And it's the hardest role to play in football, that high half forward sort of role. And what do you say? What a pickup.
Yep.
Fantastic, mate.
Very happy with him. Yep. I want to get through some of your votes, you at home, and see what you have to say. We've got Gokhan, 3 to Jones, 2 to Cripps, 1 to Harry. Adonis Destunis, I love saying your name. 3 to Cripper, 2 to Walsh, and 1 to Fog Dog.
Yep.
Terry K says, great name, by the way, Terry. 3 to Walsh, 2 to Mackay, and 1 to Cripps, with his notable being the Fog.
Yep.
Pommy, he's in the crowd. He says, interesting stats with Plowman. His game is built around zones. The game he's failed in the games he has failed in the mid drops its pressure by up to 20% from normal.
Okay.
He takes the third, usually most dangerous in tight games. Okay, interesting there. Steve Reed, Fogarty for 3, 2 to Jones, 1 to Harry. Ben Leonard, 3 to Fogarty, 2 to Cripps, 1 to Harry. A lot of Fog love here.
Yeah,
a lot of Fog love here.
The only reason I didn't get Jones in there was because, look, fantastic game by him, right? Clearly one of our best on, but he was set up perfectly to have that game.
Yes.
Because Fremantle didn't have a guy that he really had to. I mean, naturally, you've got to be accountable as a defender, but I think he was utilised perfectly. The game set up perfectly for him, and he used that to full effect, Terry.
Yeah.
So that was the only reason I couldn't get him in there, but he would have been the 5th.
No, fair enough. I went 1 to Harry, 2 to Walsh, and 3 to Cripps. I gave Cripps some love just because we really needed him to.
Yeah.
My notable was Mick Gibbons.
Oh, geez, he just pops up, doesn't he?
Mate, he was named on the ball.
Love it.
My brother-in-law.
Good pick. I like that. I really like that.
My brother-in-law talks about it. He's distilled it into my head. 2 JJ Liston trophies.
Correct. As a midfielder.
He knows what he's doing around the ball. Yeah. He's crafty. He's got footy IQ. There was one passage of play right in front of us. We were sitting on level 1 where Harry kicked those 2 goals in a row in the third quarter, and Gibbons had this moment where he knew not to take possession. He tapped it. It started a chain reaction. I just want to see him on the ball more. No offense to Paddy Dow, but I think Gibbons should be given those midfield minutes that Dow has.
I agree. Things happen
when
he gets the ball.
Yes.
And you said he's got those smarts. He just little taps, little underground handballs, and nice ball in hand as well. He had a moment where it would have been towards our side of the ground as well, the outer side, where he was, I think Harry and Betts were over the top and he just fluffed the kick.
Yep.
Look, it was one thing in a game where he did probably 98% of things right, and he had that set shot at quarter time that he shanked, but he goes back and he kicks the one at the end and when the game's all but done. So, what a pickup, mate. And he was he on the outer coming into the year, because he
didn't play against St Kilda. He wasn't named in that practice match. They the community series. They named O'Brien, and that was a bit of a flag. I wasn't sure if there was an injury concern or if he was on the outer. But he didn't play that game, and he only played, didn't play much of the Essendon game either.
No, I don't think he did.
So yeah, but I'm adamant that he's got to stay in there.
But that's been his whole career. The opportunity arises, take it.
Yes, no entitlement.
No, and that's
No
why he's playing
entitlement.
well.
Yeah,
He knows what it's about.
yeah, absolutely. There's when we think about our recruiting, and this is a good segue into the next, bunch of questions I want to ask.
Yep.
The recruiting of the mature age players over the, let's say in the last 2 seasons. So last year, obviously, we went and got Jack Martin, Pitto. I'm not going to put Eddie Betts in that category because Eddie Betts is a short-term solution. I look at it.
Yeah, correct.
And Jack Noons. 3 good recruits. It seems this year we've done it pretty well.
Yeah.
Sard, Williams, and Fogarty. Touchwood. The recruiting has a tick for me.
Mate, it's been. I mean, I don't think we've got really too much wrong.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah.
And you make mention of Adam Sard. I thought his game, and I think he was. I didn't really watch that closely, but from what you were saying, he was.
Collier was
tagged.
just on.
Look, Sard still had 21 disposals at 76% for 427 meters gained. So if that's a game where he's going to be tagged heavily, well, we've got a ripper on our hands. So, and things happen when he gets the football. I still don't think we're using him as well as we can yet.
Yeah. How so? What's the next? What's the next step?
Just whether or not it's his ability to time his runs and get that free run and carry, or it's just teams knowing that we're probably going to go through him, so they try to block off those channels of him receiving the ball. But it's his pace that is going to overcome that. But I just want to see him, and I'm waiting for it. I'm hoping it happens soon. The running goal. That's what I want from him.
It's got to come.
Yeah, and it will eventually. It will eventually. But I don't think he's hit his. I don't think he's fully hit his straps yet at the club. I still think there's a little bit of improvement to go with him.
It makes sense. You need time to have synergy with the minds, with your players. You've got to be able to look each other in the eye and know what each other is thinking.
Definitely.
And that takes time. I even think that's the case with Zach Williams, which I want to ask you about him.
Yep.
I at the ground, I was a little...
I was shitting
I
myself.
was a little underwhelmed in a sense because I didn't know what the injury was. When I watched the replay at home, he's copped a footy to the groin. He's copped a bump to the back of the head, got hit in the back by, I think it might have been Brayshaw or Sarong.
Yeah.
And then he's had the knee
or whatever
thing,
it was.
But he grit his teeth.
Yeah.
It wasn't his day, but he did. He made, I'm going to call him out. I feel like Dylan Shield would have taken the sub yesterday. Okay.
Mate,
Zach Williams grits his teeth and plays that game.
Don't forget, that's what Teague said, and that's what a lot of his teammates were saying when he started the preseason there. They said, we knew he was classy with ball in hand, but we didn't know how tough he was.
Yeah.
And that's what you need in that role. You know, I mean, we're paying him the big bucks to be the polish on the outside, clearly, but if he's got, which he clearly does have, that facet to his game, well, mate, he's got heart, he's got grit, and he set the tone early.
Yes.
He laid that big tackle. I know Freo went 3-1 ahead, but he laid that tackle early as a sign to the midfield. It's like, guys, this is how we need to be hitting them.
Yeah.
And he does the dirty stuff, which I like. So kudos to him. Look, he hasn't had a game yet where he's really stood out and you said, yeah, you've been the best on, but he's just been there.
Yep.
He's been there or abouts, and it's eventually going to click for him in that midfield as well with Walsh and Cripps. If they can keep doing what they were doing on the weekend, well, sky's the limit for him.
For sure. A few questions. Oscar Mack was the sub.
Yes.
My initial reaction was that's dangerous. He played the day before.
Yep.
Williams almost came off very early in the piece.
Yep.
And Oscar Mack had he come on, it would have been an interesting conversation had he Touchwood got injured because he'd played a full game. Where did you see that? How did you see that? Or was it a non-issue?
Look, I mean, I think the club have clearly got this thing in their mind now where if a midfielder is to be hurt, that they've got guys across half back and through half forward that can maybe go in and fill that void, sort of Fogarty and look, Murphy, for instance, if it gets desperate, he can go in there as well, and potentially Doherty too.
Mm-hmm.
Cottrell can maybe go in there too, but I like the way he played as a wingman. But I don't think, I mean, they obviously do the research and what they have to go into picking the sub.
Yep.
And he's been used to good effect as a sub so far.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him in that Richmond game and he played well. Mind you, it was probably a like for like with Jack going there. But look, hopefully we don't have to use him. But again, I think the club have got faith in the depth in each position to say if he goes off, we can bring a player like him on and someone else on the field can go into the role.
Yeah. Next one is Setterfield was a laid out.
Yep.
Cottrell comes in.
Yep.
It looked like he was a lot more suited to a wing role than what Setterfield was. What happens now with Setterfield?
Well, you can't go unless they think that Setterfield's clearly a better wingman than Cottrell. Then he can't come back into the side.
Yeah.
Cottrell is and a mate of mine as well, Nick, he listens and watches the show as well. He's a writer for SEN, Nick Negropontis. And I agreed with him instantly. He said the beauty about Cottrell was that he kept his width.
Yeah.
As a wingman, and he provided that outlet,
Yep.
in the first half. He waned away in the second half, but, the game was done then. And his ability to, mate, he runs like a gazelle.
He's added something to his running too.
Tough
Yeah.
maybe looks like he maybe put a little bit of size on as well. The only knock on him is just the poise under pressure, just to be able to lower the eyes, calm down, take a few extra slower steps to really settle yourself and balance yourself.
Yeah. And
just slow the mind down a little bit. But as a wingman, I just don't see Setterfield as a wingman. I mean, he played last year as that midfielder, and he was the one that was bringing the heat from a tackle perspective.
Yeah.
He was leading our tackles nearly every week. I just don't see Setterfield as that wingman.
Yeah.
I see him more as a midfielder rather than playing that role. So I don't think Cottrell can be dropped.
So how do you put Setterfield into this mix now? Is it for Dow?
It could be for Dow. Could be for Dow. That could be the obvious. That could be the obvious replacement.
Yeah,
I think.
Okay, it's an interesting one.
Yep.
The next one was about Levi and the ruck situation.
The conundrum there.
He was another one who, leaving the ground, watching it live, I didn't feel like he contributed much. But when I got home and watched the replay, I saw how much he threw his weight around. And if he's not going to be getting the marks and the goals and the stats, the fact that he was throwing his weight around is important to me.
Yeah.
And he is very important to the structure, because without him, I don't know who else you chuck into the ruck unless you bring in an Oscar Mack, but then you want McGovern in, so you've got to bring both of them in. So how is this going to evolve?
That's the question, isn't it? Well, I think given that Jared Witts has gone down with what looks to be a knee injury that's likely to keep him out, I think McGovern will come into the side for Levi next week, purely because I think McGovern can play a similar role to what Levi did in regards to bringing the ball to ground, crashing the pack. But I think McGovern's ability to hit the scoreboard is a lot more potent than what Levi's is at the moment. So, and I want to take an objective opinion on it too. I mean, structurally, he obviously is sound for that forward line, and he's a focal point and he's a target that we can look towards. But it just, and I keep saying it as well, you don't want to be too harsh, but I just don't see what's there for him aside from that. I said to you a couple of weeks ago as well, if we're keeping him in the side purely because he's a ruck backup, and that's what we're viewing him as, then I mean that just says it all for me. Honestly, for me, unless we get injuries or something like that happens, that could very well be one of his last games for the club. To be honest, because McGovern's form down in the reserves was too good to ignore. And I think he can bring exactly what Levi brought to the table, as I said, with regards to a competitiveness and the ability to bring the ball to ground and create a contest. But he's also got the ability now to, I think, hit the scoreboard a lot better than what Levi can. So, for me, it's McGovern in for Levi.
Fair enough. Yep. Fair enough. My final question, which was actually given to us on Twitter, in relation to this game, before we move on to the Suns, is about the age of the group that was playing. Obviously Murphy's a little, past 30, Levi's past 30, Jones is getting there, and Eddie Betts played as well. Are you worried about how many 30-year-olds are playing, or is it a little bit of a beat up?
Look, it's clearly a factor in regards to, I mean, if you look at it, obviously the older you are, it's likely you've played more games, you're more experienced, you're probably a better footballer, you know the ins and outs of the game, and as such, your output is going to be better. But then at the end, you can peel that back and say, well, maybe the younger guy who's hungrier, who's faster, who's quicker, who hasn't been beaten up as much, might provide exactly the same output as a guy who's 27, 28, who's gone through the ringer and had his head bashed in and shoulders caved in and ribs smashed and knees hit up. So I think it's all about balance. You've got to be able to have, on one hand, the experience and understand what it is to be an AFL footballer and a professional footballer for X amount of years, but then you also need the vibrance and the energy of the youngsters.
Yep.
And that's what I think the best football teams have. You look at Hawthorn back in 2008, they were a relatively young side, but they still had the experienced heads. And then you're looking at position up in forward line. Silrioli was only in his first handful of games, and he went bonkers in that third quarter to win them the game. So you need to balance it out. The Bulldogs had it in 2016. Richmond have had it for the last couple of years too. So is it a big factor?
Do you think we've got the balance okay at the moment? With who's playing at the moment? Or do you think we're too many old guys? Or
look, in my opinion, I think guys like Murphy, Casbolt, and Eddie Betts will slowly be sort of pushed out of the side. Purely because those younger kids are starting to get older and get more experience and develop into their bodies.
Eddie's handy to have there in a situation like yesterday.
Correct.
Where Martin and Fisher were out. I think if Martin and Fisher are fit, they're playing over Eddie.
100%.
But what Eddie did, which I think I said it before, I want to reiterate it at the ground, and it's something we didn't do much of in the first 2 rounds, and that was lead and create space for someone else to lead. And Eddie did that very well for Harry, but a very selfless role. And I think Teague mentioned it in his press conference as well. I noticed that on the ground, what he was doing away from the ball for Harry. I don't know if other guys
the
do
blocking
that.
and creating space.
All those things. And then that allowed Harry to get a lead at the football.
Look, for me, I think too, it's on, as I said, on one hand, you've got to say, well, if you're playing good football, what the hell does age have to do with it? If you're winning games and you're playing to your potential, doesn't matter if you're 31, 32, 33, or whether you're 18, 19, or 20. And then it becomes down to, well, what's best for the long-term success of our football club? Is it playing the 19-year-old and developing into that role, or is it a winning now mentality? So that's the beauty of coaching, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
There's no right or wrong answer, I don't think. So, and as I said, I think those guys like Murphy and Casbolt in that sort of early to mid 30-year age bracket, they'll slowly be, taken out of the side, but they may be there when we, maybe a guy like Ed Kerno or Mark Murphy might be there when we go boom. Who knows? You just don't know.
Wait, like you said last week, we might win 20 in a row.
Well, exactly. You just don't know. It started one. There you go.
So, all right. Well, I think we've got a good. I think we've unpacked it pretty well.
The list is ready, mate. It's ready.
This is it. This is it. The pieces are all
ready.
there. Absolutely, no doubt about it. It's just a matter of making sure that I think this Freo game was the catalyst for the start of the season. We're going to now move on to the Gold Coast Suns. We've got to be 2-2, which then sets us up for Port Adelaide and Brisbane. So Saturday night, Paolo. We were going to the Gold Coast, then we were going to Adelaide, then we're back at the Gold Coast. Then there was a case, there was no case. It looks like on Saturday night there's going to be a game at Metricon.
Yes, from all reports, that looks likely. And if we go back to the game last year, we played at Darwin, or was it Alice Springs? Alice Springs. It was Alice Springs.
Yeah.
So look, we got the Gold Coast at the perfect time. They had the 4-day break, young side. They looked absolutely cooked last year when they played us. And honestly, if you look back, we actually didn't really put them away.
No.
Really. There was maybe that patch, I think, in the second quarter where we had like a 3 or 4 goal burst, and that sort of did it. But they hung around, considering they were on that 4-day break, and we kicked terribly that night in front of the sticks. We got the job done last year, but this is going to be a different game playing up there at Metricon. They'll be keen to bounce back.
They're a tough side.
Mate,
They're coached well.
They are. Stewie Dew's, very competent coach, I think. And they've got a bit of talent in there as well. Ben King's in form. He's going to have to be one that we watch out for. Greenwood's a nice matchup for Cripper as well. Tackling machine. He's got the big body as well. Look, Cripps is clearly the better footballer.
Yeah.
Whether or not Hugh Greenwood plays that pure tagging role on him, and that's been Cripps's kryptonite in the past. If you look at players like Jack Steele and what they've done to him.
The guys with the size.
Yeah, exactly. But it's nice that Cripper's hit form going into this game. So, look, we have to put this win behind us quickly because it's a quick backup for us.
Yeah.
6-day break.
6-day break afterwards.
Really technically 5 when you consider the travel and all that. But, they have some good midfielders. And what I want to see is what Ed Kerno and our midfielders did to the young Freo midfielders. Bully them.
Assert yourselves.
Yep.
We've been bullied for too many years, so many years because
not with an arrogance.
Correct.
It's just let them know you're there, and the guy that they have to focus on is Noah Anderson. Now he was probably one of the better midfielders for Gold Coast in their loss against Adelaide. He had about 26 touches, so he's going to be a focal point for the Suns, as is Took Miller. So we need to get into Noah Anderson's grill and say, look, all right, you might be a young, talented player, but you ain't going to be stepping over guys like Cripper and Walsh today. And Ed Kernay needs to do what he did to Brayshaw and make sure they get right up into him.
They need to be reminded of where their standing is in the
correct.
competition.
And as I said, they'll be without wits.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you look back last year, when Port Adelaide were without a ruckman, they had Laddams go into the game, and everyone thought Pitnet was just going to go.
Yes.
And he was outdone.
Yep.
Now the same thing the lesson has to be learnt from last year. Don't go into the game expecting that you're just going to dominate because their ruckman's out.
Yep.
You know, in all likelihood, he's going to miss, given how it looked pretty bad.
Pretty sure he's going to miss. Yeah. And also we go from Marvel Stadium, nice, dry, clean football to
Metricon, muggy, yucky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got to be ready for that. And I remember last year we slipped over a lot. There was a lot of that happening.
Yeah.
So what are the changes that you're making? And question for you guys at home, what are the ins and the outs for this week, if any?
I doubt there will be, if they do change, it'll be a maximum of 2.
Yes.
It'll be, I think Levi will make way for McGovern.
Yep.
Just purely because he's just bashing on the door and they almost just have to play him.
Yep.
And given the amount of, I know it always comes up, but the amount of money that we're paying him, it's almost undermining the club if you're not playing him.
Yep.
Basically. So
especially when he's fit.
Correct. Exactly. Yep. And in goal kicking form.
Yeah.
So
and the thing with Mitch is, I think we've made the mistake already of bringing him too early, which is why I love that he got the game under his belt.
And he's wasted a VFL level, mate. There's no point playing him for another practice game down there. So maybe Casbolt might not come out. Maybe McGovern will come in for someone else. I don't know. But I think McGovern will come in for Casbolt. That's what I'm predicting. And the other one is I think Paddy Dow will come out for either Kennedy or Stocker. But I would be pleased if they kept Dow in.
Yeah.
Just to say, look, this is your month block.
Yes.
Stay in the side, develop yourself. But again, even if he goes back into the 2s, it's nothing to be worried about.
No.
Just the messaging to him should be, Dowie, we picked you up with a first-round pick inside the top 10. We think you're going to be a 10-year player for this football club. Go back to the reserves. Go get your hand on the Sharon. Get as many touches as you have to. Run around. Do what you got to do. Get yourself back into the form, mate. We're not throwing you out. You know, go back and get some form. There's nothing wrong with that. Premiership players have gone back to the reserves to go and get form. If that's the case, we've got Stocker and Kennedy to come back into the side. So I think that at max, those will be the changes. Two changes. That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Bonafide THC has said set us for Dow, Levi for Gov. We've got Josh Blody doesn't want anyone to be gifted games. He wants us to be ruthless.
100. Yeah, I agree with that too.
That's what he wants. Killer Fitz says Gov and Setterfield in, Dow and Levi out as well.
Yep. Setterfield is probably, and I agree with that, he would be in the mix to replace Dow as well. So Setterfield.
Because they said that he came out because of gastro.
Right.
So interesting.
Okay.
Tim P wants McDonald and Kennedy in. He hasn't given us the outs. Stock Standard wants Casbolt and Dow out for Stocker and Gov.
Yep.
If that's the case, right? If that's the case, and we're bringing in McGovern for Levi, what actually happens in the ruck situation?
Well, I think Harry can pinch it in there as well because he won't be coming up against a guy who's really going to get the knee into him, whether or not
Harry is in centre square, centre bounces, or
I'd
just
say around
forward
the ground.
line?
Yeah, I'd say around the ground because I think Peter Nett's good enough to be able to sort of run the game out as well. And mate, they've even thrown Cripps in there as well.
I was about to say I've noticed Cripps does it a little bit more often too.
I don't mind that.
I don't mind that. If it's a body on body contest, not a problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing it from the boundary throw-in. So
yeah, I'm not sure if that's something that's changing in the game, low key. But it could be handy to have a guy like Cripps who can take some of those bounces. Yeah. So, okay, interesting. What else do we need to know? We've got about 2 minutes. What else do we need to know about this Saturday night other than we've got to get the job done?
It's a must-win, mate.
Yeah, it's a must-win.
It's a must-win, and we're set up perfectly to do it because we've got the win on the board. They'll be without Witts as well, who's captain, and you know, he's their spiritual leader as well. A very underrated ruckman.
Yes.
Very, very underrated ruckman because he plays up there and he doesn't get the attention. But he's a very good footballer and a very important footballer for them as well. So it's a very similar setup to what we face against Fremantle, where Gold Coast have got X amount of injuries too. And you got to win, Terry. What I want to see is I want to see us go 2-2. I want to see 55,000 or more at the G on Saturday night against Port Adelaide.
Absolutely. 17th of April.
That's what we want, and
Yeah.
I don't want to look too far ahead because, we do that all the bloody time. We think,
Classic Carlton
if we do this,
supporters.
this, and this, then maybe we can be 6-3, and then we'll set ourselves up to make final. I know it's a cliche, but 1 week at a time. Let's go out there and bring the heat against the Gold Coast, mate. Doesn't matter, as I said, doesn't matter who you're playing. If it's last, second last, or first or second, mate, you've got to bring the intent that we brought on the weekend to every single game. And it's not always going to happen, but it's what you do when that doesn't happen, how you mitigate the opposition too. So must win this weekend. We can't be 1-3. No one wants 1-3, mate. No one would accept that at the start of the year, and we shouldn't be accepting that if that does occur. I don't think it will because we're in form. I think we'll be going 2-2. I hope we are anyway.
Love it. Well,
fingers crossed.
It's been a pleasure to have you in here, mate.
Always.
Love having you in here. Love your insights. Love your discussions. Before we go, I want to remind you guys, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., the next episode of the Almost Blues Brothers podcast comes out. Just search the Blue Broad Podcast Network on Spotify, iTunes, all of that. Check out what Joe, Jules, and Dan had to say. Very, very good episode. I've heard a little bit of it. So very excited about that. We're going to have Harrison and Jed back for their Blues Footy live show as well.
Yep.
And this week should be a good week. We're going to enjoy this win, but it's really it's go time from tomorrow.
It's only the beginning, mate. You've got to keep it rolling on.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. So we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, Paolo, go the Mighty Blues.
Go the bloody Blue